Yes, I have muted all. Uh, Friends, as you know, late Sri Bahari B.R. Malhotra, who was brain behind Barthab Rotary Club Pune Riverside, and throughout his life, he helped us so much. He is no more. So I request you all to please stand up for in his prayer for two minutes for silence. We will have 2 minutes silence. Thank you very much. Very hearty welcome to Neha, who is the keynote speaker today. And the topic which she has chosen to speak today, it is very relevant for all of us. We all are going to be benefited in very big way. Since there is no secretariat announcement today, so I will not be inviting for secretariat announcement. And we are very eager to listen to Neha. And I am very grateful to Dr. Uma Ganesh. In fact, she has connected with the Neha today. So I would like to invite Dr. Uma Ganesh to formally welcome and introduce Neha. Over to Dr. Uma Ganesh. Kindly unmute yourself. You are muted. Just unmute yourself. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Colonel Mishra. It's a pleasure to be with the Rotary members, Riverside Rotary members once again today, this morning. And it's a privilege to interact with all of you. I have the pleasure of introducing Neha Sinha, who is the CEO of Epoch Elder Care. Her CV is already with all of you. So I'll not be going over all the details which are already with you, but I just would like to mention a few highlights of her career so far. Neha is considered one of the leading specialists in dementia care in the country. In fact, she is one of the world leaders in dementia care, the forum that has been set up for this domain in particular. And further to this, Forbes had chosen her as one of the under 30 leaders in 2016 as someone who is going to make a huge difference to a very important part of the society, the elders. Neha has been closely associated with the care of elders, particularly with Epoch, for very many years. She initially was part of the operations team and later on became the CEO of Epoch. And subsequently, she also managed to get the investment of a leading investment firm in the country. And Imoha has actually made a significant investment. Lumis Partners is the main investment firm, which has been involved in the growth of Epoch and Imoha over the last few years. What I would like to especially highlight is how Epoch has grown over the years, starting off initially with Gurgaon and now also present in Pune. They not only take in seniors who require specialized care into their homes and provide high quality support, high quality care, probably unparalleled in this country. But the customized support and the personalized attention that they have been able to provide to all the seniors, particularly during COVID times, has been the highlight, particularly in the last year and a half since COVID has ravaged this country. even as we speak, Delhi, as all of us are aware, like Pune, has been very, very badly affected. And she is, in fact, in the midst of grappling with all the challenges of ensuring that the seniors are safe. Some of the seniors who have been affected by Corona, keeping their families comfortable and making sure, assuring the families that they are being taken care of. And of course, dealing with all of the quick actions that are required to ensure that the elder care activity is not impacted despite the lockdown situation. So here we are in Neha, we have someone who has been able to make a mark for herself in this short span of time in her career, despite being very young, is not only her personalized attention and specialized expertise that she has developed in dementia, but phenomenal insights in terms of how do we care for this elder care segment and becoming a thought leader in the country who is really interested and very keen to see how this specialized care facility, which has become the most notable center in Delhi and Gurgaon area, and now present in Pune. She is very keen to see how this system, the support services could be made available to many other parts of the country. So on that note, let me wish her all the best and invite her to share with us her perspectives on the subject of dementia and the need for elder care as demonstrated by Epoch Health, Epoch Elder Care. Over to you, Neha.
Thank you so much, Oma, for that very, very kind introduction. Thank you, Colonel, and thank you, everyone, for having me here. I actually, at the start, I just wanted to share that I'm actually a Rotary-led, and my family has, they have been Rotarians from 4 generations. So my great grandfather was actually a PDG back in the 1930s. And then my grandparents, my grandfather and my mom, both are past presidents. My mom has founded 2 Rotary clubs in Orissa. So she stays in Rourkela. In fact, that's where I am because she unfortunately got infected. So
That's amazing, Neha. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm very delighted. So is she that I have a very, very deep connect with all the work that happens in Rotary, and I was also reading about your club. Would love to understand more, how things work and if there is anything else I can do as well. So once again, just very happy to be here. I would, can I share my screen? Is that okay?
Yes.
All right, great. So yeah, before we just jump off into the topic, I just wanted to share that as Uma mentioned, I've been doing this work for almost a decade now, for the last 9 years, and the reason why I'm so very passionate about speaking about this topic is because it is generally a very misunderstood condition. And I have seen personally a lot of family members struggle simply because they could not differentiate what is dementia and what are age-related symptoms or impairment or changes. In dementia, one of the key things is to ensure that intervention is very early, and that makes a huge difference in the quality of life the person leads. Our role in Epoch is we have 3 small homes, 2 in Gurgaon and 1 in Pune. And our role primarily is to ensure that every elder continues to have as normal a life as possible in spite of having dementia or any other clinical condition for that matter. And that takes an approach where we need to have a very, very deep understanding of the person concerned, because what happens is the moment you have a diagnosis in place, you start viewing the elder as a patient, and you really forget who they were as a person. And these are what I'm going to talk about is nothing very technical. These are all insights that I have had based on working and training people who are not really nurses or geriatrics and things like that, but people who are probably care attendants who have very little training. But if you just understand the basic concept, it's just very easy to make the life for someone with dementia very, very normal. So why are we talking about dementia in the first place? Would just like to add a little bit of context to this, that right now in India, as we speak, we have close to 5 million people who are diagnosed. And when I say diagnosed, it actually means the reported cases. There are several underreported cases, especially in the rural areas or tier 2, tier 3 cities, because there's very little awareness. And 5 million is pretty much like a small country in Scandinavia, probably Finland or Norway. That's the population that we're looking at. So it is really, really increasing. It is probably increasing because people are reporting it more. But just in a matter of a decade, this number is going to go 2x. And the expenditure that we are going to do from a healthcare or society perspective is also going to increase. People just don't realize it. It's very indirect. But it is important that we equip people to care for this disease from their homes. Not everyone needs institutional care if we understand what needs to be done at the right time. So I would like to begin with just highlighting what normal aging looks like. And as the body turns 60, and this is established more from a biological perspective, there are certain changes that we all go through, or we will go through the moment we turn 60 or 65. So what are they? So when it comes to physical aging, we know that there are changes in our vision, there are changes in hearing abilities, and there are also changes in our ability to sense things from touch perspective. All the things very common is like cataract, or a hearing issue, or just ability to hold things, your motor abilities, muscular abilities. Balance is something which kind of gets altered as we age. So as someone becomes 80 or 90-year-old, you will see them stooping, you will see postural changes, you will see them requiring aid to move around. There are changes in appetite, and that's because you have an altered sense of taste. You don't really enjoy food as much as you used to earlier. So is with smell. And of course, a lot of people, I wouldn't say a lot, but some elders end up being incontinent. There are there's loss of muscular control of the bladder and bowel movements. And of course, sleep and overall sleep patterns changes. You will hear from a lot of elders that they don't really have sound 8-9 hours of sleep. They get up frequently. They get up because most of them also get up because, let's say, they have to go to the washroom and things like that. So overall patterns change, and overall health, as there are some small conditions like somebody's diabetic or hypertensive and things like that, changes in calcium levels and so on. So there are a lot of changes which happen, and when you see a lot of physical changes, it also does impact your mental health in a way, because if you are unwell, you're not going to be completely there. And mental aging per se, you do see that probably someone who's 85 or 90 or even 80, you would not really expect them to hold on to a conversation for an hour, or sit through a meeting like this very, very comfortably and remember all the, all parts of the meeting, because there is decreased concentration and attention levels. You might have to break down sentences a little bit, talk to them a little slowly, simplify what you're saying. And there are minor changes in memory as well. And specifically, memory is something which I personally feel there is no bar right now. Age is no bar, because a lot of young people, including myself, have changes, a difficulty in recalling things when you're stressed, when you're dealing with several things. So memory is no longer the only thing which kind of decides what is serious and what is not. So in short, we do see a lot of changes as we age. So how do we know what is normal and what is not? So here are a few quick questions that we can ponder on, or you can ask someone who has who is going through these changes, let's say with a care, with a loved one in their home. So something like, do you think it's normal to forget your child's name? um, would you get confused about who your younger kid is, who your older kid is? Would you get mixed up with sometimes who a grandchild is or who your child is? Do you think it's normal to get confused that are you in Pune or are you in Mumbai, or are you in Nagpur? Do you think it's normal to get confused if somebody has been staying in let's say Pune for several years? Is it normal to start shouting in the middle of a restaurant, get panicked, start wondering, not understand what is happening and walk out of a social setting? Is it normal to forget? Yes, we do forget, but would you forget what you just had 10 minutes back, that you had a cup of tea 10 minutes back? Are you aware that whether if you've dropped some curry or dal on your shirt, does it bother you, does it not bother you? So in summary, the first and foremost rule, and this is literally, in a way, if I have to summarize what this session is about, it's actually this: we all know what normal is, and we have to trust our instincts. And when I say normal is, it differs from person to person. So you as a family member, you as a caregiver, would know what is normal for your parent or for your spouse or for your relative, compared to a professional who has no context, right? No backstory to judge what is normal, to assess what is normal and not. So if you start feeling that, okay, this person, mom never used to do this, or she never used to kind of get angry, why is she getting angry? There is something wrong. So that's the first red flag in a way. So let's begin with forgetfulness, since that is what is sort of synonymous with dementia, because a lot of people think dementia is only and only memory loss, but memory loss is amnesia, which is just pure plain memory loss, nothing else. But in dementia, it starts with forgetfulness, it starts with memory loss, it starts with a region of the brain which is called the hypothalamus. And probably 80 to 90% of there are various types of dementia. So in all types of dementia, it does start with forgetfulness. But what kind of forgetfulness? And like you can see in this little picture here, it's very normal for all of us to have our moments where we get confused. So what is it? I'll not go through this complex chart here, but in summary, forgetfulness in dementia is only related to short-term memory. And what is short-term memory is literally what happened 10 minutes back, an hour ago, 2 hours ago. Our long-term memory, which are all the memories related to our childhood, to our even to our career, all the first school, first university, who we are, our identity, our profession, and things like that. All of these get stored in our long-term memory. But short-term memory is everything which happens on an everyday basis, and everything doesn't get stored in the long-term memory. So when we start forgetting immediate things, then that is a red flag for dementia. And it does not start with, so a very common confusion which happens is, oh, my mom or dad don't have memory loss because they remember where they were in 1940s. They can perfectly describe the school and the teacher, and they remember all people around them. But that's not really the case, because long-term memory gets affected much later in dementia. When they start repeating, repetitiveness is what is how you can kind of understand that they're forgetting. So if they are asking for breakfast, or asking for someone's name, or asking why you're here, or something, a fact that you've told them again and again, then that means that they are not able to sort of process and retain their facts in the short-term memory. So very quickly, what are some of the key differences between aging and between dementia? So normal aging and dementia, to put it in perspective, if you're not able to recall a conversation or some incident which happened a couple of months ago or a year ago, then it's perfectly fine. But if you're not able to understand that somebody visited your house just a day ago, and you're completely blank about it, or you forget that you've attended this session today, tomorrow morning, then this is something to be concerned about. Not able to remember the name of acquaintance. We meet so many people. There's a lot of people who also have this habit that, I remember faces, but I don't remember names. That's okay. That's normal. But not getting confused within, who is my close relative? Is this, from my father's side, from my mother's side? You would not expect someone to get confused. That is a red flag. Forgetting things or events occasionally, all of us go through it, but forgetting things in a pattern. And if you are staying with them, you're a caregiver, you would understand a pattern that they've started forgetting this particular thing. If you're able to recognize that, it's a red flag. We all have difficulty sometimes in finding the right word, that, ye le aana, yeah, can you just, go to that place? I'm just forgetting the name of the restaurant. Sorry, can you just do that? Or can you pass me that thing? So if it happens, sometimes it's okay. But a telltale sign in dementia is they'll start talking in pronouns. So you will see that words are not specific anymore. So she came and she gave me that thing, yesterday from this place. So no specific information. So when you are substituting words or using the same words to express yourself frequently, that can be concerning. One very interesting, one very interesting aspect of distinguishing a red flag is that in normal aging, you will actually see a lot of elders being concerned about their memory loss, and they'll tell you that, आजकल मैं कुछ होने लगा है, मैं ना बार बार भूलने लगा हूँ, या मेरे को ना उस दिन याद ही नहीं आ रहा था, पता नहीं क्या हो गया था मुझे, or something like that. But when someone actually has dementia and has progressed to a stage 2 or stage 3, very rarely will they say that they are forgetting. And it's their family members or close acquaintances who actually come up. So what happens with us also is that we have very few elders who will come themselves with this concern that they are noticing changes in themselves. It's always almost the family members who say that, I've been noticing this for the last few months or a year. And the moment I try to bring it up, they get, they get anxious, or they get almost angry that, what are you saying? I'm perfectly fine. So the absence of insight is also very commonly seen in dementia. And lastly, being confused in a new environment. If so best way to see is if you've gone to a new place, or you've gone on a vacation, or you've gone to a new market area. Now, do we get confused? It's possible that elders might feel that, okay, I just forgot where I parked my car and things like that. What is the way? But if you start seeing them getting confused in their favorite club or the park, or even sometimes their own home, then these are signs where you should, start noticing that how frequently it happens, what is the preceding event, what really happened, and so on. So these are some very, very simple ways to, these are not black and white completely, but if they happen consistently, then this is something which would need to be evaluated. So what exactly is dementia then? Very common question, is this a psychiatric illness or is it neurological? So dementia is a neurological condition. It is a problem. It's an illness of the brain. The impairment happens in our brain because we have tissue damage or cell damage in our brain. So it's almost a biological problem. But what happens is the symptoms that you see are psychiatric in nature, many of them. And that sometimes, kind of causes confusion that this is a mental health issue, but it's actually not. Yes, psychiatrists can also treat dementia because there is only as much that you can do in dementia. And there are few drugs which are available. And sometimes you do need psychiatric drugs to manage the behavioral conditions. But it is always advisable to seek neurological support, go to a neurologist or a neuropsychiatrist who can evaluate this specifically. And what is important in an evaluation is also what stage it is in and what type of dementia it is in. Because the management, not the medical management, pharmacological management, but the non-pharmacological management actually depends on the stage and the type. Who does it affect? Can it happen to someone who is below 60? No. It is something which affects elders. There is something called premature dementia, very rarely, very, very rarely, less than 1%, less than 0.1% seen, which would happen in, probably late 40s or 50s, but very, very rare. Typically, if you see all of these symptoms happening to someone who's younger, it's probably something else, probably reversible. There's something also called reversible dementia because it happens because of, changes in, hormonal changes or drug interactions or side effects and things like that. Then if you restore those chemical levels, you'll be fine. But dementia is not reversible. Once it happens, it is progressive in nature. So that is why it makes it very dangerous in a way, because it's only going to get worse. What is in our hands is to make sure that can we prolong the deterioration, and for how long. How does it happen? So this is almost a $1 million question, because uh, research is still going on why it happens to A and why it doesn't happen to B. And the reason why we have not been able to find a treatment for dementia is because we don't know what causes it. We understand what changes happen in our brains. We understand that neurons die in millions when dementia starts affecting a part of the brain and starts spreading around. So, our neurons die. There are something called plaques and tangles which happen. So just imagine a box of wires and imagine that the wires gets clogged in various areas. So then the information that is supposed to pass through all the wires really doesn't pass as efficiently, because they are lots and lots of huddles in between. But why it happens to you and why it doesn't happen to B is a question mark. There is a genetic predisposition. What that means is it's not hereditary. It's you are predisposed to it. It simply means that if your immediate generation, which is your parents and their siblings, if they have any neurological condition, not just dementia, it can also mean a stroke, it can also mean Parkinson's, it can mean multiple sclerosis, the several other neurological conditions. If they have any of that, then one is predisposed. If someone has dementia, then yes, you are at a risk. But will I 100% get it if my parent has dementia? No. How do we know? How do we diagnose it? Apart from all the warning signs that we just spoke about, how is it diagnosed formally? Like I said, you have to go to a neurologist. Typically, it is diagnosed if somebody is experienced. You can just take detailed history from the family member or caregiver, and you would be able to diagnose it through that. If we want to understand what type or what areas of the brain has it affected, then it requires a little detailed neuropsychological assessment, which is a couple of paper pencil tests and exercises and things like that. But personally, I have seen that if you're already impaired, it's just very, very traumatic to go through that assessment just to understand. It's not really worth it, because sometimes it takes 2-3 hours, and then it just makes the person very, very tired and very, very agitated. If it's done in a manner where the person is made comfortable and is okay doing it, then yes, very much. Also, it's sometimes the doctor advises a CT scan to see again what is the extent of damage that has happened in the brain. But again, in the early stages, there's very little changes in the brain that actually comes out in a CT scan. So in summary, and also again, the experience of going through a CT scan for someone who's in moderate stages, is difficult, being in that room. What am I doing here? You're forgetting, confusion and so on. So if somebody has good experience with detailed interview, would be able to diagnose it. Um, is it treatable? Unfortunately not. It's very much manageable, and that is the bulk of the work that we do at EPOC. And also I do speak about how it can be managed at home for as long as possible. So dementia, in a summary, is not just memory issues, but it is a cohort of thinking or cognition difficulties in thinking, information, in cognition, as well as social symptoms. And social symptoms means any changes in behavior or social skills, which is why it becomes very, very draining for a caregiver or family member, because they are seeing not only difficulty in retaining information, but they're also behaving differently. They are behaving in a manner which they didn't do earlier, and that's something which family members find very, very difficult to adjust to. Can it be prevented? We'll talk briefly about what are the risk factors for dementia. But if we know that, let's say both my parents had dementia, so, and I know that now I am at a very high risk of getting it, what can I do? Um, Unfortunately, I can't prevent it 100%. There are many advanced tests which have come up in the West, specifically in the US, where you can get a DNA test and understand whether the likelihood of your getting dementia in almost in your 40s. In that sense, if you have that information, you can definitely plan, because you know that this is how it progresses. You know that this is how this is the kind of support and help you would need. Can you figure out all the the professional help that you would need, the your retirement plans and almost everything, because at some point, if I have dementia, I will not be a decision maker anymore in my life. And that is something which we would need to plan for. So this is just to kind of explain just how severe and how severely affected the brain gets with dementia. And MCI, which is a mild cognitive impairment, is somewhere a stage in between, which probably someone in their 90s would go through. Because if you look at a person, if you look at an elder who's 90-year-old, if you look at their brain size is also relatively smaller than a healthy individual, than a younger individual, where your bone mass, your tissue density, and everything is very, very intact. It's a fleshy brain, if I just put it very simply. But the moment you have dementia, not only does your brain become lighter in weight, it's actually a damaged, injured brain. And there are deep cavities, like you can see over here. There are deep cavities that happen. So I show this and explain this to our caregivers, because it is, very draining to be caring for someone with dementia. And also, what I didn't say earlier was dementia is something which can last for almost a decade, and sometimes more than that. If you, manage it well, then from stage 1 to stage 8, there are 8 stages of dementia. If you take into account, how long will it take for you to reach the last stage, it can take anywhere between 8 to 10 to 15 years. If the care was very bad, it can also be as short as almost 2 years. And we have seen extreme cases there also, but let's say that we're looking at an average of 7 to 8 years. In that case, to every day answer the same questions, be very patient, adjust to the changes of behavior, and everything is difficult. So the only thing that you can remember is this image of this brain. And when we are expecting them to remember, or we're expecting them that, I told you, I just explained to you why you can't go home, I just explained to you why we can't do this, you have to remind yourself that, their brain is injured, and there is only as much that you can, as much information that you can push through that brain. And that sort of helps you equate it to a person who has a physical disability, and you're not going to expect someone who has a mobility issue or who's unable to walk to just get up and walk. I'm doing this exercise, why can't you walk? Because you can see it in front of you, but unfortunately with dementia you can't see the brain, and therefore you do need a reminder about setting your expectations with them. So what is the entire spectrum? What other symptoms do we have to be aware about in dementia? We've spoken a lot about all cognitive changes, but I would like to highlight two, three more changes apart from memory loss. One is language. Loss of language is very, very common. You would see a declined vocabulary in people with dementia, and they'll start using, specific phrases or sentences or common words, because simply because, think of it, that you have a huge bank of words in your brain, and suddenly with dementia that bank literally goes away, and you're left with literally a handful of phrases and words, and you have to express every single thing using those particular words. So the reason why you see a lot of agitation in people with dementia, very, very commonly seen, is because simply they're not able to express themselves. And you can actually imagine that situation when you can close your eyes and you're feeling uncomfortable, let's say physically uncomfortable. An example which I give very commonly is something like acidity or reflux. Now you need to be very aware about the changes in your body to really say that, I had a puri, and therefore, I think there is some discomfort in my chest, and therefore, I don't want to have the next meal or something like that. It requires awareness at a physical level, and it also requires very specific usage of words to convey what you're feeling, and therefore you need a hygiene. But this ability completely goes away with someone with dementia. What you will see is probably, no, I don't want to eat, I don't want to eat, I don't want to eat, or go away, get up and walking away, not talking, just lying down, but they're not able to use the word acidity or reflux or discomfort, burning sensation, things like that. So this is a small example of how loss of language can actually complicate lives, of people with dementia. We also lose a sense of orientation. Where am I? What time is it? Is this Pune or Mumbai? In fact, is this 1960 or is this 2021? Is also eventually a very big, question mark. Ability to take decisions, etc., all get affected. But coming to changes in behavior, like I explained, agitation and aggression, sometimes also physical aggression, verbal aggression, all of that happens because of a reason. And that is the stage when a lot of family members reach out to us that, I just can't handle, the moment we go for a bath, or the moment we ask her to take a medicine, the moment we want her to do a physio, we just see her being so angry, and she's used to be such a calm person. So we need to understand that anger is actually a form of communication. In dementia, it just doesn't happen because, it's not really mood changes, but it's actually because they are either uncomfortable, they are either not able to express themselves, they are confused. Again, a very example could be, quick example could be, let's say that, they are in their room, and AC servicing is happening, or a repair needs to happen. You haven't told them to expect a stranger in their room coming and spending time and doing something with the air conditioner, or a repair happening, and suddenly a person in my room, who is this person? There's also suspiciousness that kicks in because of changes, neurochemical changes. So what is this person? Am I safe here? Why is he spending? What is he doing to the AC? So the person does this and goes away, but the person with dementia actually is uncomfortable and restless the entire day because the discomfort stays. And that is again an investigation which one needs to do, that what really happened, why is this person angry today. It is never, more often than not, it's not without reason. Difficulty to look after themselves, self-care, irritability, just wandering, also pacing up and down, not wanting to sit in a place, increase of symptoms in evening, at sundowning, which we call, is also seen very commonly. And the whole day is fine, but evening becomes active, more aggressive, more questions, more restlessness, and then sleep patterns get affected. There is a lot of general, I would say, feeling of loneliness and depression. But is it really clinical depression, or is it because family members or other caregivers no longer know how to engage them? And because they don't know how to communicate, or they're confused. And what happens is, it results in them withdrawing. They refuse to come and have meals. They are uncomfortable to sort of engage with their friends, or come to the drawing room and meet people and so on. And that sometimes get labeled as depression. But it's important to understand whether it is clinical depression, because if it is, then it requires a different line of treatment. Or is it simply because they no longer know how to be social? It's also common to see hallucinations in a particular type of dementia, which is Lewy body dementia. And you also see visual hallucinations, sometimes auditory hallucinations, suspiciousness, increase in suspiciousness is also common. And in general, you will see a decline in the quality of life, whether it is sleep patterns, eating food, maintaining their hygiene, just living your life independently becomes a very big challenge. So dementia, in short, is much, much more than just forgetfulness and mood swings. It is a whole spectrum of things which enable you to live as an individual person. And we must remember that this illness takes away the ability to be who I was. I will forget. If Neha has dementia, Neha will literally forget who she was, what she did in her life, and she will probably find she'll struggle to lead an independent life without support. And therefore, the sense of empathy, not sympathy, but empathy, is required in tons for such elders, because it is a very, very difficult situation. So what can we do if we know that we are at risk? Over here, we can see very simple things and very basic things which are actually recommended for any lifestyle conditions. Even if you know that you're predisposed to a heart condition or diabetes, these are things that we should be incorporating in our daily lives. Exercise, both physical and mental, is something which is proven to be very, very important in stage management if you do happen to get it later on also. So apart from looking after your heart and your body, if you're able to keep your brain active, if you're able to push yourself to learn new things for as long as possible in your life, don't get the label of retirement and turning 60 or 70, kind of define what you should be doing with your life at all, or defining what your parents should be doing. Because at times what happens is, culturally, we tend to sort of push our elders into a bubble in India. Because if you see an elder, you tell them that, okay, don't do anything, just be, relaxed, you don't have to do too much work, don't be involved in household activities, just, pursue, spiritual or religious activities, or, in short, have a sort of a comfortable life. But it may not be the best thing to do. If they are physically active, if they are mentally able to take decisions, there is no reason why someone should not be active. In fact, also socially active at the age of 80, going out, doing money management, understanding their finances, paying their bills, all of that, kind of partying, something as small as partying, when I say, is that, just having a get together and having friends over and so on. All of this needs to continue, because they contribute to a healthy lifestyle, and we totally underestimate the importance of these things in our period of aging. Now, if someone is worried out here, please don't be. This just for immediate, help. I think we should just consult a neurologist. This very much can be managed. It is to, kind of explain the gravity of the illness, but also to not take away the fact that we can easily manage this efficiently. Um, some quick things what we can do, and what has really worked at Epoch. They're just two slides on this, not much. Basic things, so good regular medication, and there are just 2-3 medication which is given in dementia, and they're very common names, whether it's an Admint or Aricept. These are just 2-3 drugs, and what they do is they don't stop the progression, they bring a plateau in the progression. Okay, and what it will help is, instead of the progression happening very quickly from 2 to 5 years, it will take say a good 7 to 8 years, and you will see stages of normalcy with good medication support. Good sleep is equally important. If somebody has not had a good night's sleep, the whole day becomes a very big challenge. Music is a very important tool. So what we do at Epoch is we make sure that we take a very detailed understanding and history of musical preferences, and we use this in various times of the day. So for example, in the morning when we have to wake someone up, there is a specific kind of music which let's say they used to play when they got up, so play that. ADL support, which is all activities of daily living while taking a bath and so on, play a particular kind of music, so you're easing that process of taking a shower with assistance, because no one likes that intrusion in their private activities while sleeping and so on. Also, we use music to calm people down, to distract them, to actively retain long-term memory. So there are people who are not able to talk, but they can sing. So therefore, music is very important. It's speaking to them in simple language, very critical. Any activity with hand-eye coordination, which is something as like what is it called, throw ball, big soft toy. If you throw it around, you require hand-eye coordination. Very good exercise. Being allowed to tell their stories. Why it's important is because they will forget that they have explained this incident to you or their stories to you. They might tell you again and again this happened. It is important to listen to it with the same amount of interest and patience, because that makes them feel connected to you and not and prevents them from withdrawing. Physical exercise and general well-being. Quick golden rules that we follow is just ensuring, out of 5, actually, I'll just highlight 3. The first and big rule is no questions, because they don't have the ability to answer these questions. So we should not ask a child, where did you go? Who is this person? Do you remember what you had? Did you take your medication? Please stop asking questions, because they will find it difficult to answer. So it should be statements that I think you took your medication, or show them the medication. Do you want, so there's rice and roti. What do you think, do you see them picking up rice first or roti first? So changing questions into statement, enter their world, because sense of orientation goes, and they may end up thinking that this is not a home in Pune, but actually their ancestral home in a village, or somewhere in Pakistan. So don't contradict them. It is important to just be in their world. It's okay not to orient them, because even if you orient them, they will forget that you've oriented them. So that it will become a constant cycle between you and them. And always say yes to whatever they're saying is just the easier way to remove any sort of disagreements, arguments, logic, because they don't have the ability to argue and have logic with them, because like I'm saying, they will forget the moment you kind of settle an argument, but it's going to come back to you. Since we are in the time of the pandemic, just a couple of quick notes on COVID-19 and dementia, we must remember that they are at a much higher risk because it is a very strong comorbidity to have. And also because the manifestation of these symptoms will be very different. So someone who has dementia, and we have seen it in our homes, it's not necessary that they will have a cough and a cold and a fever. It may just happen with the person not eating, being confused, not responding to usual activities, or any changes of behavior. So that is how you have to watch out for. These are, any change is a symptom in dementia. And it is difficult for them to remember mask, sanitization, all of that. They will not remember. We should not expect them to. So it is, the responsibility on us is actually many times more. And that is why they are at very, very high risk. So if somebody, if you know someone who has dementia, please, please, please keep them super protected, because there's very little that we can do once it sets in. So I'll take a pause here. I think I've been going on, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Neha. It's wonderful session, much educated and got every insight. Though time is less, but I will request Dr. Uma Ganesh to moderate the session. Over to Uma ji.
Thank you, Colonel. Neha, that was really an eye-opener, the way you described aging and dementia, and what to watch out for, how to provide care for the dementia patients. It's indeed a very insightful session, and I have many questions. Maybe I can kick off by one question, and then I can request the audience to ask their questions. So in the case of dementia patients, would you advise that, there's always this dilemma, should we be placing care before comfort? What I mean by comfort is, for instance, you want to provide care and you want to move them to a place where you are located, versus should we keep them in a place where they are familiar, where they have grown up? So which option would you prefer? Would you think is better for such patients?
Yeah, Uma, I totally understand that. My grandmom had dementia, and I struggled with this in spite of doing this for so many years. But the answer to this is a very painful one, and I do have to put this out here. The fact is that after a certain stage in dementia, when you progress to a moderate and going to a severe stage, the person actually has no idea where they are, and they have no idea that you are their family member. They will have literally zero idea. So that's how it works. When we also get elders into epoch homes, it is in a way, very heartbreaking to see. We become their family members. They think that we are their child and grandchild, and they think this is their house. So if you ask them, they will actually introduce that, please IA here and all of that. So they will not remember. It is the family member who finds it difficult to take this decision, but they'll be perfectly fine. Of course, there is almost a scientific way to do the transition from your own home to an institutional, or a care home rather, not an institutional setup. There's a way to do it. And if people are trained, they'll be able to do it with making it making it very comfortable for them.
Okay. Thank you, Neha. Now I'd like to invite further questions from the audience.
Can I ask a question, Uma? This is Mridula here.
Yeah, please go ahead, Mridula.
Yeah, hi Neha. Actually, I missed most of your talk, and I just joined in the last 5 minutes, but I would certainly require a consultation because I'm with my dad in Allahabad, and mom as well, and I'm trying to bring them to Pune. I live in Pune. Dad has dementia, and he just forgets, and you're describing all the symptoms. This morning only I was wondering, like, how am I going to put the mask on when he's traveling in the flight, or should I be taking an Innova and do a journey over next 3 days, or what is better and what is not, because he obviously doesn't have any concept of mask. And first day when I came, mom has COVID and he's not been wearing mask, and he's been hanging around her, and so difficult to keep him away from her. So when I said put the mask on, he put it on his eyes and then on his head, and then he's just playing around, and then again he forgot like within 30 seconds. So in the flight, I don't even know whether he'll be allowed. What do you suggest?
Yeah. I think I would love to, probably we could take this offline and I could explain to you a little more in detail. But yes, if there is, see, he can't do the journey alone. There has to be someone with him.
We'll be there. I'll be there.
You'll be there, yeah. So if I can explain to you, essentially, wearing the mask is the one critical point, and in a flight, it's very, very dangerous right now, like I was explaining, because just taking safety precautions not advisable at all. Doing a road trip that way would be easier, but then you have to think that, how many stops, where will you stop, where will you eat, where will the washroom be, and things like that. So this is ideally not the time to move them, but if it is an emergency, it'll almost have to be a very detailed guideline on what all you'll have to basically be completely on your toes, but it will be a very big risk, and especially if they are not vaccinated.
So I will love to, get time and have a discussion separately. If you can share your contact
Sure,
details.
no problem.
Thank you.
Umaji, I had a question.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Ganesh, go ahead. No problem.
Please go ahead. You ask daughter.
Yeah, Neha, sometimes even though they have this dementia, they they take this excuse as forgetfulness and try to do that. Is that possible?
Sorry, can you
so what happens is they have this dementia, but then sometimes they're intelligent enough to make an excuse that I have forgotten this, I have done that. Is that possible?
Technically not. But what happens is, in the earlier stages, actually even for the first 3-4 stages, there are many windows of normalcy. Okay, so it's not that if I have dementia, I'll be constantly in that stage. I can suddenly also recollect everything perfectly in that moment. So it can be very confusing for family members, because we've also seen in later stages, suddenly they'll be like, oh Neha, how are you? And I'll be more surprised because they've never called me by my name. But suddenly that moment, something clicked. So it's just like the wires that I was talking about. Suddenly 2 wires in that moment clicked. So they had a window of normalcy, but they don't do it on purpose. It's possible, yes, or they may be embarrassed that they forgot, but I would not say that it was an excuse and they were doing it on purpose, because they are extremely pained and embarrassed, specifically accomplished people, people who have held, who have been decision makers, let's say, in life. For them to admit that, oh my God, I could not recognize what happened or follow a conversation, is very embarrassing. So yeah, you may see several ways of responding to these.
Thank you.
Neha, I had a quick question for you, and which is really not on the topic itself, but I just wondered what makes a young woman like you dedicate your life to a cause like this? I mean, what's the inspiration?
I think, Ganesh, inspiration is just the fact that I have seen so many hundreds of families suffer because of lack of information, including mine. I struggled with my mom and my Masi. There were 2 daughters from my Nani. And for the longest time, I just could not explain to them that Nani is not doing it on purpose. So it started, of course, she had it after I started working, but I have seen that just even a little bit of information can improve so much in the life of elders, that is what I just feel that I have to help as many people as I can.
Awesome. Keep it up.
Thanks.
Neha, you have a history of Rotary members in the family.
Yeah.
When can we expect you to join Rotary Riverside?
Yeah, no, that is one which I've been escaping from my mom. Yeah, no, I do hope I would be able to just, I need a window where I can settle some things, and really, I don't want to join and be a passive member. I really want to do something. And that's, I think, one thing that has been holding me back. But yeah, from the sidelines, totally happy to do whatever.
Neha, in case you decide, so the first offer is from Rotary Club Pune Riverside. Please do consider.
My pleasure.
May I have a question, please?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Neha, they differentiate dementia with Alzheimer and Parkinson.
Dementia with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Yeah, sure. That's a good one. So dementia is an umbrella term, and there are various types of dementia. Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. So more than 60% of dementia is Alzheimer's. And then there are things like vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, Parkinsonism. So Parkinson's disease is a different neurological condition. It's not dementia. It affects your muscular and motor movements more, and 50% of cases also develop dementia later on. There's a very high comorbidity. So that means if you have Parkinson's, 50% chance that you may develop dementia, but not necessarily that you will. But when you develop dementia, then it is called Parkinsonism, which is a kind of dementia.
So thank you very much, Neha. I think you have really got everybody to think and inspired everybody to ask several questions. Maybe we need to take up some of these questions offline. It was a wonderful session. Thank you very much for making the time. Although I know you are extremely tied up right now, catering to the needs of all the elders at Epoch Homes, both in Pune and in Delhi. Appreciate your sharing your perspectives with all of us, and wish you the very best with your career in creating more awareness about dementia and providing them quality care. All the very best to you. Over to you, Colonel Mishra now.
Thank you, Neha. We feel blessed to have you today morning, and thank you, Umaji, to connect Neha with us today. We have, before we proceed further and go for formal vote of thanks, I would like to welcome. There are 4 guests: Shamla Muthu, Maria De Mello, Vaishali Patkar, and Mridula. You are all most welcome, and I extend warm thanks also to join today. Time is not much. I will like to invite directly to Radha Munge for extending formal vote of thanks. So over to Radha ji.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Uma for bringing Neha on board. And I would like to say that, Neha, your talk was extremely informative, and we truly understand the mindset of an elder person and how his brain cells have been damaged, leading to the behavior they demonstrate. And it is good to know that it is a neurological disease, it is not a psychiatric, so that means they are not mental. Okay. And I think after hearing the talk, we are better equipped to take care of our elders. And frankly speaking, with the social scenario changing, with children being away, maybe it will help us also to take care of ourselves. One of the biggest regret in my life has been one incident when my 90-year-old mother, which I believed was very, very sound, and she said she can take care of herself, and I brought her a month's medicine. She consumed it in 10 days time, and she said, I need medicines because my medicines are over. I say, you know what? No, that's not possible. Did you take your medicines more? She refused. She got angry. She says, you bring less medicines and you are accusing me of eating more. And I got angry. Now today, after hearing you, the whole incidents come back live, how uneducated and how uninformed we were, and how much lack of understanding we have with the issue. So now all of us here at Rotary, after hearing you out, I'm sure we will have better understanding of our own elders. And probably we will also take the steps faster to seek the neurologist's help in case we believe there is onset of dementia or the forgetfulness. And I would say so. It was a wonderful talk. And I think it was very, very relevant to each one of us because we all have elders to take care in our own family. And thank you so much for spending time with us. And we look forward to you to be on Rotary board soon. Back to Colonel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Radha ji. Thank you, Radha. Before we adjourn the meeting, there are two things. One is announcement. Coming Wednesday, 12th May, morning 8:30, we have a very wonderful, keynote speaker. He is Pradeep Udas, senior partner KPMG. He is singer and performer. I'm grateful to Ganeshji to connect him. He is going to speak maybe 10-15 minutes, and he is also going to sing us. He is going to stretch out from, we are looking forward for that. And yeah, so I request you all to please block your day, date, and time in your calendar and join us. And I would like to invite Murdula ji and all who have joined today to be part of that part of that. And Murdula ji was a keynote speaker. We are taking a session for the teachers, 50 teachers, which was taken day before yesterday, and for 75 minutes, and she was keynote speaker, and teachers were from the Calcutta, and this session was for stressing them out. So thank you, Murdula ji, for joining us today. And last but not the least, we get tonic for the day in the shape of getting the joke. And for cracking the joke, I invite Rotarian Sandeep Basji. So over to Sandeep Bhai.
Good morning, everybody. It was so wonderful to listen to Neha today. She's doing such a fantastic job at such a young age. I was really moved by that. Neha, compliments to you, and please keep the good work on.
Thank you so much.
Blessings from all of us to you for this. Colonel Sahab, I think Vikram is not there.
Please go ahead.
So.
No, I'm talking about joke. I'm not talking about the thought of the day.
I know. So if you allow me, may I substitute for Vikram also?
You can go for both. No problem.
So pride will always be the longest distance between two people.
That's great. That's great.
Okay. Now coming to something to laugh about. Neha was talking of dementia. Now, of course, I know it's something which is not to be very happy about, but then there's a fact of life. Okay, many of us will be going through it, and many of us are experiencing it in our life. Now, the only way we can live life is by laughing over it. And keeping that in mind, I'm sharing this with you. There is this old Catholic church, and this a guy with dementia, he just struggles into the confession booth. So priest sees him, and then he goes and occupies his seat, and he's waiting for the guy to talk to him. He doesn't hear anything. He coughs a little, to make him aware, okay, I'm present, now you may share whatever you want to. He doesn't get any response. He knocks on the connecting partition a couple of times, and eventually the guy from the other side responds. He said, bro, there is no point knocking. There is no toilet paper on this side either.
Thank you, Sandeep Bhai. Please allow me to adjourn the meeting. Its time is already over. So thank you once again, Neha, for your wonderful session, and we look forward many more sessions from your side. In fact, we have we are going with a very huge, that is Sanjeevani Riverside, which is the flagship of Rotary Club Pune Riverside. And our target is to empower 1,000 teachers and 15,000 students. And in that, we are connecting so many, so many people who can empower them, give them skill, and make them, mentally, physically, spiritually fit, fine, robust, whatsoever you say. So I would like to invite in that session to you at appropriate time. I will connect with you. Thank you very much. So please,
Colonel Mishra, can you share her number over
I will
here?
share. I will share. I will share.
It was very nice. Very nice.
I will share. So Neha, with your permission, I would like to end the meeting. Have I your permission to end the meeting, please?
Oh my God, please don't say that. Thank you so much. It's I'm really, really delighted, and I've got so much love from all of you. I think it's just a much needed thing in the difficult time that we are all going through. I've put my details in the chat box, my email ID and numbers.
Yes.
So please, I may not be able to respond maybe immediately, but I'll certainly call you back.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Stay healthy, happy, safe. COVID is all around. So see
You
you
too.
soon. Thank you very much.